Big tech is targeting you. Not all of you. Right now it depends if you fall into a group whose thoughts don't conform with big tech ideas. In particular, Google has what I call belief maps, an exact location and identity of individuals who are classified by ideas, based on your internet searches, website visits, social media posts, emails, and some categorized with labels such as being violent extremists. And this is simply because you may be anti-vax, or perhaps you're angry about the heavy-handed approach of governments in curtailing your freedoms. Or maybe you're just learning about firearms for home protection because you're reacting to the crime wave. I'm only talking about thoughts here, not actions. Disagreeing with mainstream thought is now a big no-no because apparently you are a danger to society. If you accept this, then you don't have to watch this video. If this bothers you, you should understand what big tech is doing and how to beat this. Stay right there. I'm on the platform Odyssey.com. I'm now one of the top creators on there. Just for insurance, in case I get the platform, please follow me there using the link in the description. My company offers a VPN service, Bytes VPN, de-Google phones, VPN routers, and now we offer a Braxmail email service. These products are made to protect you from big tech and their tricks to profile us. If you're interested in them, they are on my app, BraxMe. The link is in the description. I also have merchandise in the merch store, which is under the description on YouTube. Understandably, a good half of the population have no need to care about the thought police. If you side with big tech and their agenda, then you will not recognize any threat and you will not care right now. This threat is no different for anyone regardless of political belief, but if you're not the current target, then don't worry. As long as you behave like sheep, then you're safe. But that is the requirement. You have to be sheep. There are many big organizations focused on tracking people and their beliefs on the internet. There's such a massive trove of information on each of us, and most of you are willing to add to this giant database so everyone will know about you, particularly third parties. Today I'll focus on one database and one company. The company in question here is Jigsaw, which is an Alphabet company. Jigsaw.google.com. You can check it and see what they're up to. Jigsaw was formed to use data to remake society. While Google itself focuses on the collection of data, the Jigsaw division is in charge of using that data to promote their corporate objectives, which is to change people. In one case, Jigsaw created a partnership with a company in London with the name Moonshot CVE. I'll put the links of these organizations in the description so you can check them out yourself. And between the two, they've been using the Google data, profiling what all of you think, to create what I call belief maps. This is an actual map with locations and identities of people with certain beliefs. They have groups identified as racist or anti-Semitic or anti-vax. Some groups are identified as incels. Another grouping has to do with interest in QAnon or being anti-Hillary or parents disagreeing with the curriculum. This goes on and on. And the labeling is also interesting. People who search for these topics on the internet using Google search are strangely all classified as violent extremists. In addition to these, similar memorandums have been circulated in the FBI warning that these particular groups are potential domestic terrorists. Strange how the groupings match. Some groups have also been labeled as participants in sedition. Now, to make this absolutely clear, this is not a result of any actual action. What these classifications are sourced from in this particular project are Google searches. In other words, this is based on the mere thought or research of these topics. Meaning a large chunk of the population are being classified and identified simply because they search for something and perhaps because they disagree. Now, from what I've seen, Moonshot CVE has a clear agenda. You can check the content of the moonshotcve.com site. But interestingly, there is an active focus specifically on attacking right-wing thought. Now, I don't do politics on this channel, but when I see a misbalance then it means there's a specific intent. In other words, this is a Google sanctioned activity. Google is specifically targeting right-wing thought. I do not see any projects relating to anything identifying parties on the opposite side of the political spectrum, which would be expected if extremists on both sides were being targeted. Remember that we're talking about Google, the company that together with Facebook possesses the most information about what we are all thinking right now. This activity is not specific to Google. Obviously, other platforms are doing a revenge of the nerds on all of you. But since the data is readily available, I'm presenting Google's actions to you today. Let me explain this clearly to you if you've missed what I've been saying so far. We're talking about Google's collection of data on each one of us. This is being used actively to identify those who are in political opposition to them. This targeted group is intentionally being silenced. Accounts are being closed on social media, and what they see on the internet is being manipulated. If you think I'm making this up, you need to read the Moonshot CVE research documents. You will see that what I'm saying is real, and actions like suspensions and platform banning are part of their strategy. I've compressed this into a very short explanation. It would take hours to show you all the documents that prove they are doing this. But seeing the belief maps is pretty clear. They know who you are if you disagree, and they know where you are. The original belief maps were on the Moonshot CVE site, and I've lost access to them. Fortunately, I had included them in a video last year, and in that video, I showed identified anti-vax people in Texas with exact pinpointed locations. This is not a drill, folks. This manipulation of the population based on our data is happening now. Is this important? Important enough to develop some internet privacy strategies? Which is exactly what I teach in this channel. Some of you have posted comments on my videos saying you don't want to waste time taking precautions to protect your privacy. Some of you have said that phones are for convenience and doing privacy procedures take away that convenience, so you'll never do it. Some of you say this doesn't matter. I'm free. I can say what I want. I can go on Facebook and argue politics all day with everyone there. Therefore, I don't need to care. If you're one of these people that think there's nothing for you to do and that nothing has to be done, then our phones and our privacy don't matter. And this data collection and profiling don't matter. And for you, if you do not side with Google, the battle is lost. They have won. While you think you're free, little by little the controlled messaging is broadcast with a loudspeaker and the opposition opinions are muffled. And your children will only believe one thing, what Google believes. You post your ideas on social media and think you are winning. But since you are clearly identified by the algorithm as belonging to a target fringe group, you don't even realize that you're being shadow banned. Shadow banning is when your posts are never shared automatically to your friends and followers. So you think you have equal say. What's really happening is that those who are on the correct side appear more often in the feeds of your friends and followers. You are not seen. You are forgotten. It's a pretty insidious little trick because you can't automatically tell this is being done to you. When you find out that you're being sidelined, your response is to leave the mainstream platform and go to some other platform labeled as a fringe platform for extremists. And these platforms are again attacked by being banned access to mobile apps, banned from collecting payments, and constantly being targeted in media and even by law enforcement as a haven for bad people. And yet all you did was disagree. And you yourself are targeted because they know who you are and you take no precautions. Your search results are curated. Your feed is refocused. You need to be re-educated. So your internet experience is about seeing opposition opinions being presented to you more than ever. And you weaken and you get depressed and you actually believe that few people are on your side and you soften your stance. That is how they want you to think. If you want to remain a victim, then you do nothing. But if you want to reject this attack on our freedoms by big tech, then there is something you can do. Fortunately, there is a way to blunt their instrument of control. First of all, learn this very important point. Although I want you to understand this clearly, after some point in time, where you have done so much with your current identity, it is going to be impossible to hide your identity. But I'll teach you how to deal with that at the end of the video. First, I want you to understand the way the data scientists in big tech analyze your data. Every thought, idea, response, interest, and purchase from the internet is of course known to the various platforms. These are collected from you in ways you don't even realize. You have Gmail as your email provider. Google reads that to see what you believe. Google can see your search activity and categorizes that. Google can see any website you visit. Every website installs Google code called Google Analytics, which has a double purpose. It tracks the popularity of the site, but it also tracks the individual user. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube all have clear ideas of what you think, just as your followers on all these platforms know what you think. But here's the interesting part. Captured thoughts are useful only if they can pinpoint the individual that owns the idea. Otherwise, you can't be targeted. So data scientists are eager to collect all the data about every idea on the internet. But in order for targeting to occur, all ideas must be tied to an identity. What's an identity on the internet? Now, this is not that obvious, and I teach all this in this channel, and you have to understand why this is important. There are the obvious identifiers like name, address, and phone number. Most of you don't really think about any of this because the world has been safe for you so far. You think, but they know you. You are targeted. Did you give the platform your main phone number for two-factor authentication? Then yes, they know you clearly since your contacts have identified that phone number with your real name. Did you not take care to hide your location? Of course not. Most people don't. But did you know that your phones and computers can record your location within 6 zucking feet? Which means your home address is now known. Do you think your Google and Apple mobile phones are so convenient and have the greatest cameras, so you won't part with them? You didn't know that these phones have a unique serial number called the IMEI that is unique to the phone. This is readily captured by Apple and Google and thus is known to be you. So anything you do, your locations, your name, your phone are all matched together. Did you know that every move on the internet is connected to an IP address? This IP address is unique to your household and it's recorded permanently, and there is no permission required to collect it. Unfortunately, most people are very cavalier about their identity, and yet this is the main way that big tech has defeated us. Here's the basic secret to winning against big tech. Destroy the link between the information and the identity, and the data scientists will fail to make sense of the information. Even if as few as 10% of the population understood this, then polls and surveys will fail to reveal our thoughts, and big tech will be left with invalid data that they cannot act upon. So how do we protect our identity? How can we fight this huge threat? How do we make Google and Facebook data worthless? When it comes to platforms like Facebook, there's no actual solution other than to not have Facebook. The reason is that these platforms are tied to identity by their very nature. You use your real name. Your friends crowd verify your identity from classmates to relatives. Your contacts have already verified your phone number and location through photos that captured the location data. Your relationships have already been verified through facial recognition in photos and acknowledged by family relationships. Being in these platforms is an absolute no-no because there is no way out. But while you're still there, if you cannot remove yourself immediately, the least you can do is to shut up. Start acting like a moderate. While your identity is clearly known to the opposition, stop being an activist. You are not winning. All you're doing is providing the ammunition for big tech to profile you. You can only safely be an activist if your identity is not known. If you have the guts to do this, slowly act like you're changing sides. Confuse the algorithm. When the data is not clear, the data scientists are forced to dump that data and focus on someone with clear data points. Now, on the rest of the platforms that don't require a real name and don't build crowd-verified identities, you can make your identity disappear, or at least fade away, and perhaps reappear as some other identity later on. I'm going to give these tips to protect your internet identity in order of importance. The most important source of your identity is your phone. While you have a Google or iOS phone, your actions are clearly associated with you, from location information, the phone IMEI, the Google and Apple login. The solution is to dump the phone and get something that doesn't allow this. The main type of phone that is really important to have is a de-Googled phone. There may be other options in the future like Linux phones, but at the moment this is the primary mainstream solution. I have videos explaining what a de-Googled phone is, but basically it is a phone running Android, but all Google connections have been severed. There is no login. Google cannot access the IMEI, and location tracking is limited. Once you switch to a de-Google phone, you basically disappear on mobile. This is important on many fronts, since what you do on other devices like a PC is also connected with the phone because of the Google and Apple login. Now, you will have a phone without a login. A big chunk of that tracking disappears. A de-Googled phone just shows up as a generic phone and could be the same as any phone user that's only using a browser. It cannot be associated to a specific person. The phone is the single most important determiner of identity. Take this move and the impact on your freedom is very significant. Your phone number is a definite identifier. If you used your main phone number as your recovery phone number on social media platforms, then they can confirm you are the same person as the one owning that phone number in the past. This is why you need a separate phone number for two-factor authentication. This could be as simple as carrying a spare SIM card that's only used for texting, or maybe an old phone. But just plan this out simply. Use a number that's not on your friend's contact list. The next step is to isolate Google in your life. Having a de-Googled phone helps with this, since you cannot even install a Google app on a de-Googled phone. But on a PC, this is extremely important. Most of us cannot remove Google completely from what we do. They are that pervasive. You're all watching this on YouTube. Most of you are using Gmail. Most of you are using Google Search. Don't worry, this can be handled. You can still use these services, but you will now take the step to isolate Google. What you will do is prevent Google from seeing what you do outside of Google. This is actually easy to do. You will need multiple browsers on all your devices, but when you're doing Google things, use only one browser that is logged into Google. For example, I use Chrome for Google. Google owns Chrome, so this makes even more sense since you can log into Chrome. Now listen to this very important point. Use an alternate browser for anything that's not connected to Google. For example, you can use Brave or Firefox for accessing Amazon, Apple, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on. You must never log into Google on the second browser. Ever. This is what will happen. Of course, Google will track what you do on the second browser, but it won't be able to match that to an identity if you never log into Google on that browser. The result is that the data collected by Google becomes worthless. You can also have a third browser to do YouTube, but also without a login to Google. This allows you to search for things without being tracked. The next important step is to hide another common identity, and that is the IP address. If you're using cell data only, then this is not an issue. Your IP address is a shared one, so you don't need to do anything else. But if you're at home and using Wi-Fi and you have a DSL service, then your IP address is well known and associated with you probably for many years. The way to hide your IP address is to use a VPN. The way a VPN helps you is that it makes your IP address a shared identity. Many people will be using the same IP address, and that renders the identity useless. Just about every platform tracks you by IP address. And so the more people switch to using VPNs, the more this data point will become less important. Once you have the basics done to protect your identity, now you can fight back actively. You can now be active with alternate identities, use different email addresses, use different names. Then you don't need to operate in fear. So what if they track you on YouTube? If you create a new identity with the protections I stated, then they don't know exactly who you are and where you are. Then you do not have to care. You don't have to fear that what you say will be removed. You can always create a new identity and start again. In the meantime, you have your old existing identity. That identity can start acting like a conformist. You can make them believe you've turned into sheep. Don't be afraid to click on things that you don't really like. Behave differently. Believe differently. You can still use your old identity, but use it in a way that tells big tech that you're sheep now and that you're not an issue. Now let me teach something more advanced, and that is absolutely an amazing way to defeat big tech. Remember that I did not tell you to disconnect from Google. I simply said that you isolate Google so it is by itself. You use a particular browser for Google with your original identity. You are logged into Google on this browser. You may still even have an old Google Android. Well, that too is a direct connection to Google. As long as you have isolated your real activities with a de-Googled phone and a different identity, then whatever you do on these Google connected devices will be known and stored by Google. This is the perfect opportunity to change your choices. Watch videos that are opposite of what you believe. Click on websites that are opposite of what you believe. Do Google searches on topics that are not what you believe. Wow, I can't think of anything more damaging to their AI. This is the ultimate way to weaken the opposition, destroy the value of data. If you've been super active in the past with this identity, destroying the data with a scorched earth policy is definitely an approach. By making your choices so unbelievable and inconsistent, the algorithm will think you've become loony all of a sudden, or their interpretation of your data in the past has been wrong. Their only choice is to exclude your data from their sample, and when that happens, you've won. Your engagement with this channel in the form of comments, likes, and especially subscriptions is very important to me. This channel grows because of you. So I hope you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.